The deep dive on Hoop City with Paul Sir. I'm pleased to be welcoming back Ben Golliver. Ben, we talk often. We talk about a lot of different things relating to the sport of basketball, but we've just come through an interesting trade deadline season. I guess my first question for you, Ben, was this year different than other years? You've been doing this a long time. This trade season seems to have a little more salsa on it, a little more cheese on the side. Like it, and I don't know if that's social media, if this is just normal activity, but I don't think it was. I wouldn't call them seismic shifts, but I would call them certainly major focal points evolving into some pretty substantial changes for a variety of teams.
Well, we can point to some pretty big names who got traded, right? Anthony Davis, you go back a little bit, Trae Young, Jaren Jackson Jr., and the list goes on from there. What has changed, and it's not just this year, it's been the last couple of years, but the NBA instituted a harsher salary cap that's more like a hard cap, kind of like the NFL. And so what I would say in the old days, and by old days, I mean maybe 3 or 4 years ago, the trade deadline was an opportunity for good teams to be buyers and get ready for a championship push. And it was an opportunity for the bad teams to be sellers and get some draft picks, play for the future, right? That's typically the construction of the trade deadline as we've known it for a really long time. What has changed now, it's not about good teams or bad teams. It's about expensive teams and not expensive teams. Yes. And so what you're seeing is even really good teams that might be in the championship picture wind up being sellers because they're concerned about trying to avoid luxury tax payments, or they're trying to avoid what they call the second apron, which is the highest tax level that teams face. And what you see is that you have less expensive teams who therefore, even if they're bad, they have the ability to spend because they have this cap space, and there's other teams that are out there who are willing to give them players to kind of fill it and take the money off of their hands. So the whole idea of the hard cap is to create parity. It's to spread the talent around more evenly. And that's where you really saw this trade deadline. There was very few trades made at the deadline that actually impact the championship chase. Minnesota went out and got a guard in Ayo Dosunmu. You look at the Boston Celtics, they get a center in Nikola Vucevic. Those are really the moves I see potentially impacting, the deep playoff chase, the conference finals and the finals. Yes. Otherwise, almost all the other trades that were made were financially motivated trades. And what I mean when I'm talking about expensive teams versus less expensive teams, Washington, very low payroll. They decided to take on Trae Young and Anthony Davis. Are those guys even going to play this year? Maybe not. Utah, very cheap team in terms of their payroll. They're able to bring in a player like Jaren Jackson Jr., very expensive player. Even though they're rebuilding, they can start to plan for the future. So that is the biggest trend shift that we've seen when it comes to the trade deadline. It's no longer about good teams and bad teams. It's about expensive rosters and cheap rosters.
Never have seen the word apron used so much in my life. It's like going into a kitchen.
Well, you were telling me about salsa and the cheese on the sides. You know something about that, sounds like.
You might as well throw the apron on when you're making your decisions. It's really so true. The one other team I would put in there that made, I think, a substantial move would be Cleveland.
Oh yeah,
the move of James Harden. Like Harden, 4 teams in 6 years. He is, he is such an odd duck that I don't know if he can't. If he's just restless or what his mindset is like, but there's something about what happened that's a bit intriguing. I'm really intrigued at how this is going to play out, Ben, because I look at Harden. He's a Hall of Fame player, fantastic, capable of going into Cleveland and really making a difference for Mitchell, for the bigs that they have there. They've got the defending defensive player of the year. And they've had an underwhelming season, although of late they have been much better. And part of that was because Garland's been hurt. But now you've got, as you mentioned, Minnesota, being a Timberwolves fan. I was glad to see them pick up Dosunmu because that is a gaping hole in their depth. Dillingham just hasn't done much of anything at all. And then, like you mentioned about Boston's acquisition of a big. So now you've got 3 teams that really are that really did use this to make a push. And
well, I appreciate you mentioning Cleveland because I think that was an oversight on my behalf. It's also a really interesting example of what I'm talking about, though, with the expensive teams and the cheap teams. So they make a win now move by going to get Harden because they don't trust Darius Garland to stay healthy. He hasn't really been a playoff performer for them in the past years. Remember, he was limping around against the Pacers last year in the playoffs. So they're saying Harden might be older, but they're almost the exact same amount of money for this season. So that part is a wash. And he's more reliable, more durable, and he can hold up for the playoffs better than Garland. So that's good. But Cleveland also traded away DeAndre Hunter, and they saved themselves about $50 million in luxury tax payments by trading a guy who was their big deadline acquisition last year, who's supposed to be a starting level player for them. And they also traded away Garland, who theoretically was going to be their point guard of the future, a top 5 lottery pick they had drafted and groomed for years, who was going to be expensive, going forward into the future. And so even though they made the win now trade with Harden, Cleveland, because they were so expensive, they actually cut costs at the deadline too. So it's a very unique dynamic. And actually same thing true for Minnesota, where, they trade Conley, they do trade Dillingham, they lose some assets. Just to create the opportunity to bring in Ayo Dosunmu. So it's just never been quite this complicated, right? Like it's so expensive. If you want to get a player who could really help, you're probably going to have to make cuts somewhere else. So that part was fascinating. I love the move for Cleveland, though. People are always going to scoff about James Harden, the playoff choker. He's got a much better playoff resume than Darius Garland does. And when he's been in the Eastern Conference, he went to the second round with the Brooklyn Nets, the second round with the Philadelphia 76ers 2 years in a row. He came back out to the West, which is the tougher conference, and they lose in the first round year after year. So I would say Cleveland, that you could pencil them in as the second round team. That just tells you James Harden's, history, and they should make it at least there, if not further. And when you look at their big men, Jared Allen, one trick pony. It's just a dunker, right? Evan Mobley, they've wanted to turn him into this playmaking big. It really hasn't worked out. He needs to be set up, but he's also a very good finisher at the basket. Who creates more layups and points at the rim than Harden? Maybe Luka Doncic. That's about it. So I think they're bigs who are limited. You're going to be able to get the most out of them. And then Harden, the last point I'd make here, he has so much experience playing alongside high usage stars. You go back to Oklahoma City, it's Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook. Brooklyn, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. You just go down even when he was in Houston, there was Chris Paul, there was Westbrook, there was Dwight Howard. Every stop he's had, Kawhi Leonard with the Clippers, he's always been able to play and be very effective while playing alongside a high usage player. So Donovan Mitchell should be looking at James Harden and saying, I don't have anything to worry about. This guy knows exactly what it's going to be like to play with me.
100%. And at one point, you might have attached the label a bit selfish to Harden when he was scoring 37. But that's not the case anymore. That really isn't the case anymore.
He can't do it, right? I mean, he's too old. He can't be taking 30 shots a night.
No, he'd love to, but he might take them. He won't make them. But I think I think that's the fascinating part about Cleveland is you described it really well. And now the qualifications to be in the head office of an NBA franchise, I would think the dynamics of hiring would have changed so much. You don't have Clint Eastwood and Brad Pitt sitting down with their pieces of paper and figuring out in the Moneyball manner of how you're going to run this. Although you could say the depiction of the Oakland Athletics maybe was a precursor to Moneyball in terms of getting the most for your dollars and using analytics to get there. But now it is such a sophisticated business that you have to balance out. So you have to balance out for your organization so many factors. And every other team is doing the same thing. I mean, it really has gone into three-dimensional chess in terms of how you position yourself for success, which makes, again, referring to the three that we're referring to, and I would put Utah into that category too, because that's a fascinating pickup, and I'm really looking forward to seeing Triple J play alongside Markkanen. That's an interesting front line, and the emergence of George in Utah as a really good scorer and consistent scorer. The Angels have set Utah up for, I think, a faster rebuild as opposed to just on the accumulation side. So I'm going to ask you about my Timberwolves. I think this match at Dosunmu with Edwards should be really good. That's my That's my projection. This guy's long. He's athletic. He's somebody they just haven't had. This allows DiVincenzo to be more of what DiVincenzo is, which is more of the Swiss Army knife kind of player, as opposed to the part-time point guard. What do you think the impact could be of this acquisition?
Well, you know what happened. They looked at that Thunder series and they said our backcourt got chewed up by those Thunder boys. Those Thunder boys ran roughshod over our guards. They forced a million turnovers. They bullied the small ones, and they exhausted Anthony Edwards, right? So it's like if you're going to a pit bull fight, better bring a pit bull, right? That's what Dosunmu is going to be. I mean, he's going to be relentless. He's going to push back. He's going to give them some physicality and length on the perimeter, like you described. I did think Minnesota needed a table-setting guard. I feel like Edwards has had a really, really heavy burden. And when things have gotten tough in the playoffs, he has worn down a little bit. And they've had too much on Julius Randle's plate where he's, very turnover prone. And so it turns into a situation where their offense grinds down. I just kind of don't believe in Mike Conley anymore. And so I was kind of hoping that they would be able to replace him with a similar style of point guard. Now, there aren't that many of those guys out there, and you don't want to settle for like a small guard, like in the Dillingham mold. Like some people might have tried to say, well, just give this guy more minutes or play Bones Highland more and it'll work out. That's not going to work against Oklahoma City. Your small guards have no shot. So you might as well try to be big, physical, and try to, stay to that identity. And when you look at Randle, I mean, the guy is cut like a Greek god. You look at Gobert, huge rebounding numbers, covers the paint left, right, and center. You look at Edwards, I mean, he's probably the most physically imposing two guard in the NBA. They have a real clear identity there. So I think Ayo is just a really clean fit. Is he the type of player who completely, can change a playoff series? I don't know about that, but it really helps once you lose Nickeil Alexander-Walker to be able to plug him into your playoff rotation because you just didn't really have enough guards even last year. I mean, remember how Alexander-Walker was like almost their savior in a couple of games where it's like he's the only guy who could score for them when times really got tough. And you plug in, I think also important with Ayo, he's been shooting the ball better this season than at any other point. Sometimes that happens, if it's a contract year or guy's just really been in the gym working on a shot, maybe it's just luck and variance. But this is the year where he's been shooting well, and the Timberwolves need the spacing because, the big physical identity I'm talking about sometimes is a compromise on spacing. So they could certainly use another shooter too. I just thought it was a smart move. They were linked in all these big deals, Giannis rumors and all this stuff. The subtle deals where it's a real clear fit and there's going to be a benefit in the playoffs, those are the ones that I tend to like. And that one fits the bill. They were kind of my, biggest winners, but they're up there in terms of the biggest winners of the deadline.
I would agree with that. I'm talking to Ben Golliver. We're talking NBA trades here on Hoop City with Paul Sir. Ben, we'll talk about the other winner that you touched on, and that is the Boston Celtics. Celtics have been, I think, at the top of the heap of a case study of what the new apron means to how you've got to radically, in some cases, and in their case, to radically change your lineup composition. The way they dumped players in the offseason, and now Brad Stevens making a very, very pointed strategic move with a player that does plug an obvious gap. I think we're all of the ilk that the Celtics have exceeded expectations this year with Tatum being out. They played really well. Jaylen Brown has had a phenomenal season, but everybody else around him has performed at a higher level. Like Pritchard, I would have never expected Pritchard to be this player, and he's your guy. He's from your home state, and the guy is incredible.
He's playing so good. The other night, Reggie Miller compared him to Caitlin Clark. I don't know if you saw that. He got a little backlash on that, but that's how you know you're having a good season when they start comparing you to Caitlin, right?
Yeah, that is a good comparison. That was an awkward moment in that broadcast with Caitlin being on it. But anyway, but now they bring in a really good post. Garza, who came from Minnesota, was a phenomenal NCAA player, didn't do anything in Minnesota, but he's been a bit effective coming off the bench, gives him some really good minutes. But now you've got a premier post to build around, and we'll see if Tatum comes back this year or not. But where does this position them in your mind now in the East? You got the Cavs making their jump, as we've talked on. But when you look at the East now, in your mind, is it Boston and is it Cleveland that are kind of emerging at the top of the pile?
Well, I would probably still default to the Knicks. I know it's been an up and down roller coaster. But man, when they play well, they look real good. And I've always been.
That's a good point.
People love to say, oh, the NBA is better when the Knicks are good. I love to kind of mock that and say, hey, the NBA is good all the time. The Knicks, if they want to show up, they could show up, but we've been waiting for the Knicks to be good for 30 years, right?
That's right.
But they are now. And so I think that they were another team linked to Giannis, and I think it makes sense to not do that trade now and ride it out with this group and see if they have a shot. But on the point about Boston, again, we go back to the finances. Think about all the amazing but also expensive players who've gone out. Kristaps Porzingis, Drew Holiday, Al Horford. They got Anthony Simons for Drew Holiday, and they wind up trading him to get Vucevic. I'm sure there's other names I'm not even remembering. Oh, Luke Cornett. He winds up leaving. I mean, they lost basically half their rotation, and it just speaks to the power of their culture that they've been good at all this year, because teams do not lose that many good players, proven players, and maintain their standing. One guy I want to give a shout out to is Derek White. He was my biggest snub from the All-Star team. What do you have to do besides win basketball games to make the All-Star team? You got all these guys on there with losing records. I mean, look, I get he's not averaging 25 points a game, but if you want to talk about the best players in the Eastern Conference who are contributing to winning this season, Derek White's got to be on that list. I thought that was unfortunate for him to get snubbed. I get it because Jaylen Brown gets all the attention, but come on, it's more than just a one-man show there. Now, in terms of Vucevic's fit, the question for him is he's never been a playoff performer. He's never reached the second round of the playoffs in his entire career. And he's going to be one of these guys. I want to say he's going to finish with like 20,000 career points, 10 or 15,000 career rebounds. He's been playing high-level basketball for a really long time. And so the question is, okay, he plugs into a very thin front court, not a lot of great options there. I mean, Kata's played well, guards, like you said, they've just been patching it together with duct tape. So now they got a real player. Is he going to be able to hold up defensively in the playoffs? We've never seen it. It's been 14, 15 years. So it's kind of a prove it opportunity for him. But if you're him, what would you rather do? Waste another season with the Chicago Bulls in the play-in tournament? You're probably going out before you even make it to the playoffs. Or you put on that green jersey and you get to take a shot. I mean, he's probably the most motivated guy coming out of this trade deadline, because he's thinking, I might actually win something for once. This is going to be great. All those years toiling in obscurity in Orlando and Chicago, and now you're on the big green machine, right?
100%. You're seeing an awful lot of awful lot of banners in the rafters there, unlike anywhere else, except, of course, your Lakers. But
the worst part about getting traded to the Celtics is that all the good numbers are taken, so you got to start picking weird numbers. That's the only downside when you get traded to the Celtics, because you look up and you're like, oh, I wanted that one. Oh, that's Bill Russell. Oh, Heisen. Okay.
You're not going there. You're not. There's way too many legends up in the rafters. Washington continues to fascinate me, again, because they kind of fit the mold that you just described. They keep shuffling the deck. They do have some good young pieces now. The thing I like about them, and that's not a word that gets attached to the Washington franchise often, is like anything they do. But what I do like about them is they're trying hard. Like, they really are trying hard to build something and starting from way less than nothing when they took over.
Well, so, they've got some young guys coming along, Alex Sarr and Keyshawn George. Those feel like those guys could be keepers, right? Yes. But you know how it goes. It takes a few years to really build a player, right? And is Alex Sarr going to be an all-star candidate next year? He could be, but this year he's not quite ready yet. Is Keyshawn George going to be, a lead ball handler on a good team? Maybe, but he's not there yet, right? Trey Johnson, rookie, is he going to be a good player? It looks like it, but not quite, consistently there night in, night out in a rookie year. And that's okay. I mean, there's only a few, Cooper Flagg and Con Knipple, who are going to be able to do that right out of the gate. VJ Edgecombe, right? But not everybody's going to hit the ground running like that. What's interesting with Washington's gambles on Trae Young and Anthony Davis, are they there as foundational players like their names would suggest? or are they there more almost in like a rehabilitation assignment mode, right? Where, again, Washington is a very cheap roster, so they have the flexibility to bring these guys in. Do they stay 1 year? They wind up getting traded. Maybe their value improves. Do they sign a short-term contract extension? Maybe they're there for a couple years, and then they're on to their next home. Well, we've seen in this group, the front office for the Wizards, they cycled through like Westbrook. They cycled through Beal. They cycled through. I mean, Chris Paul wasn't even there, but he was in one of the trades. Chris
Paul's been on every team this year, hasn't he?
Yeah, exactly right. They cycled through Jordan Poole, Chris Middleton, Marcus Smart, CJ McCollum. I mean, that's all just in the last couple of years. And so people are saying, well, maybe they're trying to put together this great inside-outside pairing with Trae Young and Anthony Davis. Maybe, or maybe they're just kind of parking their contracts for a year, hoping that the value improves and they can turn around and maybe get a couple extra picks out of it if they trade them down the road. I think, it's open to interpretation exactly what role those guys are going to have longer term. If I had to guess, I don't think Anthony Davis is going to be a Wizard very long. I would think that this is more about he had to get out of Dallas. Nobody's going to follow in Luka's shoes. It was just way too toxic. So he finds a change of scenery, and maybe Washington finds a way to benefit down the road. I do think Washington is still committed to its youth movement, though. People are going to look at Trae Young and Anthony Davis and say, well, they're giving up on it. No, they're not. I mean, these young guys are still the priority. It's just that, they're so bad, every little bit helps. And, they play positions of need as well. I mean, Trae Young, they don't have a lead ball handler, so that's fine for him. Anthony Davis, they don't really have a positional conflict there. Like, they got room in their front court. He can play side by side with Sarr. That's actually a pretty nice defensive pairing. So it'll be interesting to watch if they can put all these pieces together. But they did surprise everybody by making these big swing trades, because people are just thinking, again, oh, that's a bad team. They're probably going to be sellers. They're not going to be buyers. But it's a new market. It's not about good teams and bad teams. It's about expensive teams and cheap rosters. That's how we have to look at this midseason stuff now.
Unfortunately, Ben, I've got to run off now, and I apologize because I got our conversation started late, and I want to go on for another hour. The All-Star team.
Yeah.
You mentioned White as an exclusion. Any others that jump off the page? It was Kawhi. Does Kawhi deserve to be an All-Star this year? I think
Kawhi got snubbed, but then he was named by Adam Silver as like an extra replacement because they had to balance these rosters for this USA versus the World game. So that one got worked out. The next guy up on my list would be Şengün. So if Giannis or one of these other international players can't play, maybe you could plug in Şengün. He's had a good year. He hasn't had a great year, but Houston's been winning. He's good. He's a good player, solid. He's got the numbers to be up in that top mix. And so I did feel like he got overlooked a little bit. My biggest surprise, I mean, LeBron made the cut. I don't know. I don't know. And it was interesting because he didn't do very well in the fan vote. He didn't do very well in the media vote. He didn't do very well in the player vote, but then the coaches came through for the reserves and they put him on there. I get giving him the respect. I understand it. If it's just going to be a dedicated LeBron spot for all of eternity, I understand that too. But if we're going on pure merit, I do think there was some other players, more deserving.
I watched the game last night. Reeves was fantastic. Very concerning, very concerning about Luka. Let's hope this isn't. That was an ugly wince that Luka had when it happened. It was one of those that you go, ooh, that looked like that really, really hurt, and is really not good. But LeBron wasn't very good. And look, what I'm seeing now in LeBron, which I find to be kind of interesting, Ben, is one of he's unbelievable for his age, but he more often now gets himself, it seems like, trying to go too fast for what he's able to, that he used to be able to do, that he can't do, even though he's trying to do as fast as he used to be able to do it, if that makes any sense at all. But he's making big mistakes in transition that he never used to make, where he's trying to run too fast and do too much, and it just literally gets away from him.
You hit the nail on the head. It is one of the easiest ways to see the age catching up with him. When he's in transition, he's looser with the turnovers, looser with the handle, and then he doesn't always have the lift on the layups, the running layups. and he'll start to smoke layups, off the backboard, off the front rim. And it starts to feel a little bit like Westbrook, It's like, wait a minute, this is the guy who's going to dunk everything in transition, or at the very least, it'd be a smooth and one foul. Look, there's still a lot of good game in LeBron too. I'm not trying to denigrate him, but the All-Star standard is high, and I just don't think because of his health, his defense has really lapsed as well. They play a lot of zone now, which I think is actually a really smart move from JJ. If you have to hide a bad defender in the NBA, the way everybody switches everything, it is a lot easier to hide them in a zone than it is into man-to-man, because especially in the playoffs, they're just going to hunt you, right? They're going right after Luka, right after Mike Conley, whoever that week, Trae Young, whoever that guy might be, they're just going to feast on them. You sit back in a zone, it's like, all right, well, you better make a three-pointer over the top, or you better have somebody who knows how to facilitate in the middle of the zone. Otherwise, we can hide our weak links. So I think it's smart from JJ to do it that way. But yeah, LeBron faces a decision here. Is this it? There's kind of been some rumors both ways. He's got some cryptic comments where it kind of feels like maybe this is the last time through. And then you flip it and there's rumors, well, maybe he would do a last run with Cleveland, So he always keeps us guessing. But I think the end is getting closer. I guess I put it that way.
It is. He's played with his son. He's accomplished, pretty much everything a player can accomplish, even though he is still the target of a lot of people that aren't huge LeBron fans. But you cannot argue with his body of work. It's one of the greatest bodies of work of all time. But you're right. It's on the horizon. It's just a question of when he wants to pull the plug. So, well, Ben, thank you for this. It's been great talking with you again. I look forward to talking again real soon. Ben Golliver, longtime Washington Post, Sports Illustrated, one of the best, if not the best, writing about the NBA. Keep looking for Ben's columns. And Ben, thank you so much for joining me today.
Always a pleasure. Take care.
All right. This is Hoop City with Paul Sir. This has been The Deep Dive. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Now, the Rascals, the first time I saw them was on the Ed Sullivan Show. And their shtick was, and back then, especially with bands, they really had a shtick with the outfits that they'd sometimes wear and the way they dress for the image they wanted to portray. And with the Rascals, they called themselves at that time the Young Rascals. They dressed up like little kids. They were dressed like in shorts with long socks and these little goofy beanie hats on. And that was the way they wanted to impress people. But man, they had 3 or 4 just great songs. And People Gotta Be Free from 1968. You can see my Paul's Picks 1968 Billboard Top 100 on my X account that I sent out yesterday. And there's some just fantastic music from that particular year. Josh, poll update. Where did our wise, intelligent listeners come in on who benefited the most from the trade?
Poll update. It's our first clean sweep. It's the Cavaliers. Everyone says the fantastic. Cavaliers are the big winners.
Smart group. And just like we talked about before, there's lots of reasons for that. And so it's going to be it's not a seismic shift like Giannis going somewhere, but it's a big shift. I talk about James Harden in my blog about 4 teams in 6 years. This is his next Disco Hall. Hopefully he can bring the Cavs back, though, to relevance, which they were coming back to anyway in the Eastern Conference. But I'm really hoping that he will make a difference there. NBA legend, we had one nomination that I, in particular, got very, very excited about, Josh.
Yeah, you did. I said the name, and you're like, oh, that's the pick.
Yeah, regardless of who else came in, and thank you to everybody who put their names forward, but we're going to go today with Fred Brown. Most people probably don't know who Fred Brown was. Freddie Brown, downtown Freddie Brown, played for the University of Iowa. He was a long-range shooter in an era without the three-point line and without the shot clock. But he played an unbelievable game of deep shooting, like I said, at a time when deep shooting wasn't particularly valued or looked for. But Fred Brown, downtown Freddie Brown, had a range that if he played in the modern era, he would be one of the great three-point shooters. I'm not saying he'd rival Steph Curry, but he had Steph Curry's range at a time when it didn't matter whether you were a foot from the basket or 40 feet from the basket in terms of the number of points that your team got. But downtown Freddie Brown was a phenomenal player. He won an NBA championship in 1978 with the Seattle Supersonics. He played, like I said, for the University of Iowa, and he was an instrumental player in one of the greatest college basketball games I ever saw. And that was a first-round NCAA March Madness game in 1969. I'm pretty sure it was 1969. John Johnson, who went on and had a great career for the Cleveland Cavaliers, was also a star for a University of Iowa team, and they went up against the Jacksonville University team with a Hall of Famer named Artis Gilmore. Artis Gilmore, for people who aren't familiar with him, was a 7'2" or so center, played in the ABA for the Kentucky Colonels, won ABA championships, went on to a great career primarily with Chicago when he came to the NBA, when the ABA and the NBA merged. But Freddie Brown and John Johnson and the Hawkeyes squared off against Artis Gilmore at 7'2", Pembroke Burrows III at 7 feet in this classic matchup. So get this, Josh. No shot clock, no three-point line, 104 to 103. Jacksonville won.
That's unreal.
It is.
Oh man, I can't really fathom that, because the shot clock is made to make the game faster and really run those scores up. And the fact that they're able to do that with just twos and ones, essentially, with free throws, is unreal to me.
And it was dynamic. It was exciting. And of course, whenever you watch old basketball footage from eras and decades gone by, you look at it and go, wow, those guys aren't that good. They were that good. And in that era, they were fantastic. So downtown Freddie Brown, my hat tipped off to you. Who was the excellent listener who put that forward?
That's from Ryan. Seems like he's been a long-time listener to the station, but it's his first text in 2 years. So shout out to Ryan.
Ryan, you are the man, and we will get your information. We need to get your size, and I'll get a Hoop City t-shirt out to you. But thank you for that. The privilege of talking about downtown Freddie Brown. And again, what I always refer to, because we were laughing off air about comments that have been made about players from past eras, and J.J. Redick's derogatory comment about players from the bygone areas from the 50s, were plumbers and firemen. The guy's he's a great he's a great player, great coach, and he's an idiot for having said that. I take great offense at that comment, because when you look at Bob Cousy, could he play today? Absolutely not. But that's never been the point. Bob, the reason players handle the ball today and make a lot of the passes that they make today is because that's what Bob Cousy started. And just it goes with Freddie Brown as well. He started demonstrating what range possibilities were, taking shots from depth and distances that nobody else was at that time. So I love having these legends being brought forward and the opportunity to talk about them a bit. So let's go three from deep. We're gonna go through these really quickly.
Yeah, we'll go through that really quick. I do have one more text here from again, friend of the station, Tiger.
Hey, Tiger.
He says, Paul, my son had some training with a really great man in Calgary, John Hedgewood. Do you know John Hedgewood?
I do. John Hegwood is it's Hegwood, John.
Oh, Hegwood. My apologies.
That's okay. He's an American. He played at the University of San Francisco. John has run a real good, very successful basketball program in Calgary for a long time. John is intense. I'm sure your son experienced that. So yes, John Hegwood has done a lot of great things for the basketball community in Calgary.
All right, three from deep, +1. Number one, the WNBA continues to flounder in their negotiations to get a collective bargaining deal done. Is this management, players, or both?
I think it's obvious it's both. Management has been inept in their ability to get a coherent message across to the players who are inept at understanding what this is doing to I think the luster of their league. I hear comments like this is insulting in terms of the offers that are being presented, expecting things that aren't really realistic to expect yet. The rise of women's sport, thank you, Caitlin Clark, has been monumental over the past couple of years. But you can't get ahead of yourself in terms of what is going to be paid until you actually generate the revenue to pay it. And as far as they are coming, and that the league, the WNBA, and women's basketball has come, and it has come a mile, that's great. But you're not there yet. It's not on par because the money's not on par. So those parties, the parties, had better settle soon so they don't screw the season up over silly negotiations. It's going to get better. It's getting better. People are going to get paid more. But don't get ahead of yourself and don't kill the goose that laid the golden egg.
Fair enough. All right, number 2. The biggest names in the trade world did not move. Are Giannis and Ja Morant going to be moved in the offseason? And if so, what will teams need to give up to get them?
Okay, yes, they're both going to be gone in the offseason. They're both going to be in different cities next year. My guess is for Giannis, the team that gets him will have to give up a lot. Maybe not as much as they would have given up 5 years ago, but they're still going to have to give up meaningful present-day assets and draft picks to get Giannis. Ja Morant, I think the Stingers could pick him up right now. I think if we had the money, we could get Ja, because Ja Morant is just not a desirable commodity. He's injury-prone, he's very expensive, and he has been nothing but trouble for the organization. And so I think his stock is so low, and it's a combination of things. It's unfortunate, and I feel for him that he's had to battle through these injuries. But the combination of the change in the way the NBA is run, as Ben Golliver was pointing out, it's no longer acquiring talent. It's now managing your business so that it's affordable to build your talent up and to be able to be competitive based on the numbers. And that's where Ja Morant is no longer a high-value commodity, because he's not the player, and Josh, you said this when we were off air, he's not the player he was 2 years ago. But he's still very good, but he's not worth the money he's being paid, and he's a big question mark in terms of what he's going to bring to your organization.
Couldn't agree more. As Brian Windhorst put it, negative value.
Negative value,
yeah.
Yes.
Number 3, the Raptors added some size and saved some cap room. Was that enough for the team?
No, it wasn't, but maybe it wasn't the worst move either. I wanted, and I know I've said before, I really wanted them to make a run at Sabonis, but he's a problem as well, because he is now becoming and staying injured more often and for longer stretches of time. So while it's a nice thought, what they would have had to give up to get a player like that whose health is also questionable, as is the ongoing back problems that Jakob Poeltl is having. So they got some size. The kid that they picked up from Golden State, he's okay. So he's going to give him, I think, some length. He'll be able to change some shots. He's not going to be a difference maker, but it'll be better than having Murray Boyles having to start at the post, in my opinion. And the fact that they now will have Quickly, and if Quickly and RJ can stay healthy for the remainder of the season, along with the outstanding play of Ingram on offense and Scotty Barnes on both sides of the ball, I think the Raptors are positioned to make a nice season out of this, and to far exceed what we all thought that they were capable of. So I think Bobby Webster took a page from Masai Ujiri's playbook and just said, let's stay the course, because to do something dramatic right now without really seeing how good this team can be, this team has enough talent to invest the rest of the season in. So let's see how they go for the rest of the year, And then we'll see if Raptors management will want to do something a little more dramatic in the offseason.
Great points all the way around. And one, All-Star Weekend next weekend. Do you care?
Not at all. I could care. The only thing I care about in the All-Star Weekend is the three-point shootout. That literally is all I care about. The slam dunk competition, since the Aaron Gordon, who's the
dunk contest, Zach LaVine.
Zach LaVine.
Yeah.
Since then, they are just atrocious.
10 years ago, by the way.
10 years ago. And when I say that, I have to say this is a guy who could never jump. I admire their athleticism. I admire their creativity. But honest to God, it is just dreadful to watch for me. And anyway, three-point competition, true competition. I wish they still did the men's and women's. I love the one between Curry and,
Sabrina Ionescu.
Ionescu. I'd love to see that again. But as far as the All-Star game, I can't stand it. It's just awful basketball to watch. But hey, that's just me. The sound in the background is David's song, written and performed by my son Ben and his band, Worst Days Down, in tribute to David Finkelman, whose life was tragically taken from him by a careless driver at an intersection, not paying attention to streetlights properly, devastating to his family. We lost Ben almost 3 years ago, devastating to our family. But in honoring his life and in carrying our lives forward, I always try to remind ourselves to be kind to each other, to be kind to ourselves, to be kind to those that you care about and that you love, and make sure you tell those that you love them, but also think the best of others and be kind to your fellow human being. That was something Ben embodied in his day-to-day life. Ben was legendary for being kind to those less fortunate. So I want to just pass that on to you, bear that in mind, because those are the most important things in life. Basketball, it's great. It's a game. Life is different. People you love are different. Josh, thank you so much for today.
Always happy to do it, Paul. Looking forward to next week already.
Likewise as well, and to all of you out there, I hope your basketball IQ went up today. Thanks to Doug McLean, Ben Golliver for being with us. Looking forward to next week, just as Josh is, to bring you more hoops. Great games, by the way. Duke, North Carolina today. Arizona plays Kansas on Monday. Illinois, who's really good, playing Michigan State today. Paul's playlist online, my blog's online as well. Have a great week on and off the court. You've been listening to Hoop City with Paul Sir, Josh Fenwick, on your sports leader, Sports 1440.